Welcome back. We are at episode 52, and we're going to talk about our second part of building up a pure web server. So we're going to kind of go straight past most of the beginning of this stuff. If you are interested in what we went over on that, well, then you need to watch part 1, which is episode 51. We still keep our type that we're dealing with. Our application loader, nothing changes here. Remember, our type is basically a web part which takes a request object and then returns either a 404 or a future of either a 500 or whatever the result needs to be, this generic A. And we had our writers in episode 51. We built these up, and it allowed us to send OK or not found. So what we want to do now is to actually introduce our first filter. So by a filter, what do I mean? Well, in this case, we're going to start by doing a method filter because that probably is one of the simpler things that we can do. And so with this method filter, what we want our filter to do is, in this case, we want to be able to say something like get. And we want that to be a function that we can compose, and we want to be able to call method filter here and pass it get. You see we've got a few helper functions here to go with us. We've got this then here, which is going to help us compose everything together. We'll see that here in a bit. We have pure, which you see right here. So basically, and then we have fail. And so the key difference here, if you notice on pure, we're just going to pass whatever the thing is, and we're going to do either of and future of, because that ends up becoming the result of the type that we're dealing with. And then on the fail, we're returning either left and then future of. It really doesn't matter what the future is of in this case, because basically the either left, if we looked at our type up here, in our either, the left is actually going to be whatever would be basically a 404. In other words, this thing doesn't match, and we would see that actually right here. If we call our web part with our request, we split out between the two eithers. The left case just goes directly to a 404. So this is just a nice little shorthand to be able to deal with that. So what we see here is that we have a method filter function, which, given a method that we pass, then it will return our web part. And to return our web part, to determine which web part we're sending, we're going to check to see whether or not the method on the request matches the method we passed. And if it does, then we pass pure and we pass this on through. If it does not, then we return fail, which is basically shorthand for either left future of blank or foo or whatever you want, and it's going to pass that on through. So then what we can do, very similar to, and this pattern is very similar to the same pattern that we used up here, because these things are very similar, by essentially manually currying the method out from what the web part is. We're able to do a get this way. We can very easily do a post, etc. So we could add as many of them as we wanted here, but it kind of keeps it all nice and constrained. So what does this look like when we actually use it? So the whole concept of web parts is that we're going to be able to compose all these web parts together to be very declarative about what our app is. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to compose all these things together. We're going to use then, and we're going to say if it's a get request, then we'll return an OK. But that's the only thing that we're going to do. And this is what our application ends up looking like. So we're going to compose functions together. We talked about we were going to do that. So our application is such that if it's a get request, then we'll return an OK of hello get. And then we can simply load app and pass our application. What's neat about this is that application is a web part. Get returns a web part. OK returns a web part. So all of these things are web parts, and we're just composing all of them together. The value inside that web part may be different, but we're just composing all of these things together in our chain. And so if we were to actually hit the endpoint for that with a get, we would get hello get. If we passed a post to it, it would just return a 404. And the reason it would return a 404 is because if it's not this get here, then we're going to fail in this case. And by fail, I don't mean throw an exception, I mean return an either left. And as we know, from our application loader, if the web part, if we receive an either left, then that's going to return the 404. So there you have it. There's introducing our first filter. When we look at this again, we'll probably get into a thing called choose, which actually will allow us to say, if it's a get, then return hello get. If it's a post, then return hello post, or things like that. So we can compose these things together. So there's a little teaser for what we'll see in episode 53. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any questions. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.